Well, today is the final farewell to President Jimmy Carter. You were watching that on our station before we came on the air. Several former presidents are gathered at the Washington National Cathedral, where they, along with other dignitaries, are honoring the 39th president. His grandson, Jason Carter, delivered some powerful and personal remarks while President Biden delivered the eulogy. Special Air Mission 39 will depart for the Lawson Army Airfield in Fort Moore, Georgia, shortly after the funeral concludes. Now, Local 3's Greg Glover is live in Plains, Georgia right now, outside of where a private ceremony for the late President Jimmy Carter will take place. Greg, what have you been seeing there so far this morning as they are waiting for the president to arrive back in Plains, Georgia?
Well, it's a quiet, cool morning here in Plains, and President Carter will soon return to his hometown after 5 days of ceremony and respects being paid by world and national leaders and by his fellow citizens. Those who knew him best, the citizens of Plains, will have their chance to say goodbye. You know, Jimmy Carter was born and raised on a farm a stone's throw from here. On the procession that took him to Washington, D.C., they paused there at the farm, and the bell that awakened a young Jimmy every morning before sunrise, an hour before sunrise, the name of one of his books, was pealed 39 times in honor of his presidency. Well, today, he comes back to his spiritual home first, Maranatha Baptist Church, where he and Rosalind worshiped since the early 80s, since he was, as he put it, involuntarily retired from the Oval Office. It was the site of his famous Sunday school lessons that he taught twice a month, when the congregation numbers would swell from a few dozen to more than 500 sometimes. Following the funeral service there, the procession heads to the Carter residence, which is just to my left, less than 3/4 of a mile there. The plan is, if it's not too late in the day, the procession will pause at Plains High School just over here. The family will exit the procession and walk along behind the hearse to thank the residents of Plains, who will no doubt be lining the roads here, Route 280 West, as they go. It's reminiscent of Inauguration Day, January 1977, when Jimmy and Rosalind jumped out of the presidential limousine, becoming the first president and first lady to walk Pennsylvania Avenue to the White House. This is a humble town with just one flashing yellow light, but the pomp and circumstance befitting a commander-in-chief will follow to the end. Expect music from choirs and bands. Expect cannon and rifle fire with a 21-gun salute and a 3-shot volley. The folding of the flag, of course, and presentation to the family to the tune of the naval hymn, as Jimmy Carter, peanut farmer to Naval Academy graduate, nuclear engineer, President of the United States, and of course world humanitarian, is finally laid to rest at his home beside his wife of 77 years, Rosalind. We'll be here to follow it for you. Coming up in just about half an hour, you'll hear from some local FFA students about what this day and being here means to them. We're live in Plains. Greg Glover, Local 3 News.
Thank you, Greg, there in the hometown of former President Jimmy Carter, Plains' most famous resident. Well, several presidents attended the Washington National Cathedral for a service for former President Jimmy Carter, including current President Joe Biden. This state funeral capped off days of services and memorials to honor the 39th president, including an opportunity for the public to say goodbye while he laid in state at the Capitol Rotunda. President Biden says Carter's enduring attribute was character.
During his 100 years, to young people, to anyone in search of meaning and purpose, study the power of Jimmy Carter's example. I miss him, but I take solace in knowing that he and his beloved Rosalind are reunited again.
Well, we are going to have much more from this funeral later in our newscast.